All right. I think we are live. Yep, we are good to go. Sweet. Okay. So it's been a busy week over, or just kind of in general, hasn't it?
Yeah, it seems like every week there's never a lack of things to talk about.
I think,
What a
yeah,
time we're living in. What an age.
it was one of the things where I had a couple stories already kind of like, all right, I picked some out on like Friday and Saturday. And it was like Sunday and Monday hit. And then, of course, some more stuff today. It was just like, oh my God, okay, what do I need to cut at this point to talk about? So, originally I was going to talk about New Hampshire first, but let's face it, we all kind of know what's happening over there. So we'll get into that a little later. Right now, let's just go straight into what's going on right now over at the border. And for those of you who might not have been keeping up, just to kind of set the scene a little bit, last month in December, over 300,000 illegal immigrants came into the country. That was just December, right? So 300,000 immigrants coming over the border illegally in just December alone. And because of this, of course, some states had enough. Now,
Okay, so that's just the ones that were counted and processed.
yes, exactly. So Lord knows how many actually made it in December. We could be talking 400,000, 500,000. We have no idea. And thankfully, Texas decided to stand up and actually do something about it. So, of course, this was an example of what was going on. Hey, Robin Hood Capitalist just subscribed. Thank you.
DJ.
So, over here we got what was happening prior, before Texas got involved, which was some of the original fencing that they put up. They had the Biden administration had Border Patrol come in, literally tear down the border so that illegal migrants could just come on in as many as they want, right? They're just coming in by like as we saw, over 300,000 in 1 month alone. So obviously, after seeing this happen time and time again, the governor, Greg Abbott, actually decided to call in the National Guard and
Guard told migrants approaching.
turn off the audio, called in National Guard and fully secured the border. They put up new fencing, more barbed wire, had the National Guard out there in force, making sure no one could cross, really just doing everything they could just to kind of keep things at bay. And for the most part, it was working out pretty well, actually. By all accounts, every video you could find was people just no longer trying to use Texas as a way to get into the country.
At least this one part, because it's a small portion that they brought in the guard for.
It is, and it's that portion where if you saw those pictures of the news of like those thousands and thousands of people packed under an underpass and all this stuff, this was the area. This was the area they were talking about. This was one of the main entry points for a lot of illegal immigration, and where, the Biden administration was really just waving people in nonstop. Because of course, they really want to make sure they come through Texas of all places. But the Biden administration, of course, didn't like the fact Texas was actually standing up and doing what was needed to be done. So they took it to the Supreme Court, and recently, unfortunately, the Supreme Court voted to actually allow federal agents to go in there and tear down the Texas border. Which, we should probably talk about that first, because obviously Republicans have the majority on the Supreme Court right now. And yet, they voted in favor of the Biden administration to actually demolish the border and allow more illegal immigrants coming into this country. And the main person who changed here was a Trump appointee, ACB. So
Yeah, you would expect Roberts. That's no shock. But
oh yeah, if you notice, I didn't even count him because he always votes Democrat, right? He always, almost every time it comes up, he always seems to vote to the left.
and I don't know why it is, but it's always the Republican nominated judges that flip. You never ever see one from the other side flip on a key issue.
Oh, I know, never, not once. I can't think of any time I've seen it. And I know some people have been going on like, oh well, she's Catholic, and of course all the people coming across the border are Catholic. That's why she did. And some people of course saying, oh well, she's a woman, so she just thinking emotion. Also, I'm like, I don't really think it's that exactly, because she's had a good record up till now. I just don't know exactly why she would. I mean, admittedly, it's a tough thing to say that the states have superiority to the federal government when it comes to the nation's border, but I really did not expect her to actually lean to the left on the issue at the end of the day. I expected her kind of just to go with, really just what the other Republicans went with, right? Like, I expect her kind of just to stay the line. But no, she broke ranks, same as Roberts always does, and actually voted to allow the Biden administration to dismantle our border. Absolutely insane.
Makes you wonder. Some of these things that we've been kind of counting as a win on election security and some of Trump's issues and all these things, it was just sort of given that the Supreme Court's going to rule a certain way. Do we really know that at this point? No. I don't know that we do.
No, not at all. I mean, obviously you have some very strong supporters who will not break. Obviously, but like you said, it's never going to be a Democrat that breaks in favor of the Republican Party. It's always going to be the inverse every single time. So we can't ever count on that, right? And what we can count on is, like you said, Roberts always siding with the Democrats. And now apparently we have to worry about ACB as well, which was not to be expected. Because, I mean, remember, the left hated her. I mean, the left was talking about how she was a religious nut job and how she was insane because she wanted to have a family of all things. Can you imagine wanting to have a big family? I mean, clearly. I mean, well, apparently the FBI was, of course, investigating or, putting people on a watch list for being religious, wanting to have big families, and shopping at Bass Pro Shops. So I guess she fits the mold pretty well.
That was another interesting story, the whole monitoring if you shopped at Dick's or Bass Pro Shops or sporting goods stores. But no, it's absolutely ridiculous. But I've got to say, I never did read the actual opinions because when it was first coming down, it was coming fast and furious. And what I thought I thought I was reading opinions, and then you get into the middle of it, and you're like, oh, it's satire. And so I read a bunch of satire, and I never saw the actual opinions as to what the legal reasonings were behind the rulings. So I'm still curious about that, but it's just I thought this was a slam dunk going in, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think we all did, right? I didn't see almost any news about the case coming up, mostly because I think most people assumed that they would vote in favor of allowing Texas to protect its borders, as you would imagine, but no.
Right. Now, what it has led to is the next part of your story, which is absolutely fantastic.
Which, we just mentioned, of course, ACB, as well as a lot of Republicans always being the ones who flip over to the Democrats, always being the one who, they always kowtow to all their demands. Greg Abbott has basically, and this is a post by Greg Abbott, this is not over. The Texas razor wire is an effective deterrent to illegal crossings that the Biden encourages. I will continue to defend Texas's constitutional authority to secure the border and prevent the Biden administration from destroying our property. And you point this out to me. He has a very creative justification as to how he's able to enforce the border, and it really is pretty much brilliant. So he put out this statement, and what they're doing is they're talking about Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, and I have this pulled up right here as well. No state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops, or ships of war in times of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power, or engage in war, unless actually invaded, or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. So he's basically declared this as Texas actually being invaded, which we've been calling this an invasion for quite a while now. So it is an impressive way of justifying his acts constitutionally and making sure they continue to keep National Guard there. So despite the SCOTUS' ruling, and despite the administration sending even more border agents over there, they are still holding the line. And not only are they still holding the line, I had one over here. Here we go. They're putting up more border defenses. They aren't just holding to saying, well, we'll see what happens. No, they're actively putting up even more border defenses at this very moment. I mean, this is, I know obviously we love when governors stand up to the federal government, right? I mean, we're more.
This is leadership, and it's constitutional.
Hey, Maggie Flowers. Thanks for subscribing.
Flores.
Flores. I couldn't see
That's
it.
DJ's wife, Maggie.
Ah!
Yeah, man.
I couldn't read it off of the corner over here. Well,
But yeah, no. So this to me, I love the tactic that he's using. I love the justification that he's using. It's basically what he's done is he put his razor wire on his flag and he looked Santa Ana in the eye and said, "Come and take it." And I like it.
Now, here's the only part that is somewhat concerning. Is this almost a Fort Sumter situation happening here?
So it's gonna force Biden's hand, right? If you come in and try to do something about this, then that is a very similar situation. You're going to send federal troops to come in and stop this to allow more people to come in. So either he does nothing and looks weak, or he does something and looks like a tyrant.
Well, so in a way,
what's his option?
this is almost kind of a reverse Sumter, isn't it? Because I mean, with Sumter, obviously it was the Union soldiers continued to hold a fort that Lincoln actually told everyone that he was going to abandon anyway. So when the Confederate troops got there, they expected to abandon fort for the most part, found the Union troops there, and then Lincoln, of course, moved the ships in position to a point where the Confederacy had to either decide to completely back off their entire plans or assault the fort. And it kind of forced the Confederates' hands into assaulting the fort for them wanting to secede from the Union. This is kind of the reverse of that, where the state is now forcing the federal government's hand to see what they'll do. So it should be kind of interesting to see how it all plays out in the end. I mean, it might not play out particularly well, but it is kind of interesting to see kind of a reverse situation of that.
Hey, I'll be willing to go and live with my buddies in the Free Republic of Texas when when
you
everything
got enough
goes
buddies
down.
over there too where you could do it.
We just got to get across the border with our weapons and ammo that we've got stocked up, and then we'll go in like Davy Crockett and just hope it ends better for us.
I think you mentioned Davy Crockett. I want to pull this up right here. You know, one of the true journalistic outlets there are, the Babylon Bee. Texas places razor wire around the Alamo for last stand against Biden.
So, we've been cleaning things out and going through a lot of your old toys and things from when you were here. We found this DVD that had a lot of pictures on it, and it was from our trip. So I was just looking at a picture of us standing in front of the Alamo from many, many years ago.
You know, I always hear
It
people
was no
say,
razor wire though.
I always hear people complain, like online, you see like, places that will be unimpressive to you and all that stuff. And the Alamo seems to make that list quite a bit. And I don't get it. I love the Alamo. Like, if you're in the area, go see the Alamo. It's really cool. Like, I guess people say it's supposed to be, imagine it being bigger, but the fact it's actually smaller just makes it even more impressive, actually.
Yeah, and it's just a few steps from the Riverwalk. So just to go take in all the sights of San Antonio.
Yeah, go grab
eat some good Tex-Mex.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
By the way, DJ said count me in on moving to Texas. But this is getting to a situation where, I mean, depending on how this plays out, will be analyzed for the next 100 years probably. I mean, this is like one of those moments when it comes to American history, I think, here. That's kind of starting to happen. Do states have the ability to defend themselves like this?
And no governor has ever invoked the clause as far as what I've read so far. I can't find any evidence that it's ever happened.
So did no governor ever...
So this will be a test of the constitutionality. And so you're right. This will be studied for a long time to come.
Like, I mean, obviously no governor will have dared do it during the Civil War because anyone who tried to take power from Lincoln, they faced the consequences pretty quickly. But during 1812, did no governor try to do it then at all?
Apparently not, and it could be wrong because it was a cursory look to see if there was anything that came up, and so don't hold me to it, but it doesn't look like it's been invoked in this way before.
Listen, if they can misinterpret the Constitution in all the many ways they have, we can interpret this part of the bill however the hell we like.
Well, I know this isn't even a weird interpretation. This is reading it directly,
very directly.
Yeah. This is word for word what it says.
So, and they try to play those type of games all the time when looking at the Constitution, like they do with the 14th Amendment when it comes to birthright citizenship. So, hey, I've been saying it for a while, right? Let's play the same game they're playing. If they're going to sit there and play hardball, we have to play hardball. This is a direct interpretation of the Constitution. There is legal, the legal right is there. Now let's move the ball forward. Let's keep moving on with this. And you know what? Anything that moves that Overton window of states' rights over federal rights, I'm all for it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny to me this whole birthright citizenship thing. I never really heard you get too much on it until you started getting after Nikki Haley.
It's funny. When I was working in politics, I had to actually defend like a couple things involving it, especially stuff like DACA and stuff like that, because the person we were endorsing was in favor of it. And it was like the hardest thing ever to try to find some way of justifying it in my mind. Part of the reason why I don't think I'll ever go back to doing stuff like that. It was like the first politician I worked with came out against the Second Amendment. I was like, well, screw it. I got to get out of this one. And then this group now wants to support stuff like
that's a little
DACA.
extreme. He wasn't completely against the Second Amendment. He was just way too far from where we would be to the Second Amendment.
Listen, if you say that you are forced by a law to get approval from the government to exercise your constitutional right, I think that's against Second Amendment, because now you're turning it to a privilege, not a right.
It was bad. And what it was is just like it happens all the time. He gave in to the pressure from the shooting that happened at the courthouse,
which did happen like right next to all of us, but still.
Yeah, we were right 2 buildings down, but again, he just gave in to the leftist pressure instead of standing his ground on the Constitution.
Now, and for those of you who are,
I think that was more of a wimp out and thinking I'm going to ride the wave for my own personal, benefit instead of standing for principle. And that's even worse to me than anything is that type of an attitude.
I'm not going to entirely just call him out by name, but what I will say is, for anyone wondering, it was a local election around the area. It wasn't like a big, federal election. But the whole idea that he wanted to put...
for DJ, this is in Virginia Beach. It's before your time in Virginia Beach, but it wasn't.
Hey, he's still there. He won. But hey, he was all right with it. He was a very nice guy. He was a very nice guy, actually. But yeah, he came out basically saying that you should be forced under law to attend gun classes, and the government will not provide, of course, any. It would have to be charged by you, of course. You would have to pay the money, of course, making it so people who are impoverished, they can't afford to go to a gun class and all that stuff and take time out of their week in order to practice their Second Amendment right. If someone needs a firearm to protect themselves, they should have a firearm to protect themselves. Simple as that. It was.
Now you're down in the People's Republic of Mecklenburg, so it might be hard to find a candidate. But let's just say that you could find a candidate who is really principle based, and one that you could really believe in. Would you get back in the game?
Oh, that would be tough. I don't know, because I'll be perfectly honest. I am not that great when it comes to just getting a bunch of volunteers out there and doing stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, I got to a point where I had a good little crew, but I'll be honest, I'm not, what's his name? The guy who travels constantly signing people. Scott Pressler. Yeah, I'm not Scott Pressler. I don't have that in me. For one, I feel like I'm a bit too confrontational sometimes, to a point where it kind of frustrates me meeting a lot of stupid people and trying to get them to vote. I'd rather, you know me, I'd rather try to pass a law to make it so you have to pass a test so you can vote.
Yeah, you got to build the support for that too. So you're out of luck. I was just curious if you thought you'd ever get back into it.
The only thing.
So do you remember the story about? Do you remember the story about Alan? That was the candidate that Alan got invited to what he thought he was getting invited by a pretty girl to the champagne party. So he goes and carries bottles of champagne, and it turned out they were making political signs. It was a campaign party.
Listen, I've been at enough of those campaign events. I'm sure everyone appreciated the champagne he brought.
He was very disappointed, but he spent the day with the pretty girl, so you can't go wrong, I guess.
I think we could say which candidate that was, because that was Scott Taylor. That was a big federal election, obviously there. Then he tried running for Senate and kind of failed pretty bad that one too. I only met him a couple times. He seemed like a nice guy, but I didn't really get a chance to really engage that much with him. So, but I wasn't at that point. I think I was still living in. Well, no, I think we ran for Senate. I was in Virginia at that point, but I think originally when I was still in North Carolina. So I didn't work too much with him. Only got to meet him a few times. I love how every time we start jumping into this sort of stuff, we start going on this whole tangent about all sorts of different things.
Well, it started with the Alamo and defending, and of course you bring up Babylon Bee. If you're going to bring the bee up, it's hard to stay on target. But I think the analogy of come and take it is very apt in this case. And for people that don't know history, they put the cannon on the flag. They told Santa Ana, come and take it if you want it. And that was kind of the leading right into the Alamo. So I don't want this to be Texas's last stand, but I want Texas to take a stand because somebody has to.
Well, it's kind of funny because people have said for a while now that Texas is one of the only states that has really any ability to actually legally secede from the Union at this point, because they were the only state that was originally a country when they were adopted. So them seceding and becoming, it just goes back to them being their own country, which they already were. And let's face it, the size of Texas, it's already big enough to be a country in most places of the world. I don't think people realize how small most countries actually are. Like when you look at a map that overlays like America over Europe, it's pretty shocking actually, like how small England is, right? Like it's very tiny. So if they can be their own country, well, Texas sure as heck can. Plus, they have enough natural resources there, they can handle things pretty well. Not that the government will let it be, but
yeah, it would. There's a few challenges in between, but it's fun to think about.
I mean, let's face
it. There's a few states that would provide support right away. So there was a few. Kristi Noem jumped right into their defense, and a couple other Republican governors stepped in to back up what he's doing. So
I didn't have this right on the list here, but DJ did mention the Kari Lake story. Did you hear that?
Oh yeah, so it's not enough that the whole media is against her. The Republican Party wants to bribe her to keep her from running for Senate.
Now I did a quick. I'm pulling this up pretty quickly, so unfortunately this is CNN. But you know what? It is actually, for once, I'll be able to see what's actually true here. But so what happened is the chair of the GOP in Arizona actually tried to bribe her in order to drop out of the race, basically, and to just disappear for a year or so, because that way she could then get all these talk show gigs and make a ton of money and everything. And after she basically kept saying no, and whoever's telling you to do this sort of stuff, maybe you should go public about it. He goes on to say, well, if I do that, then I'm going to turn on my car one day and now, admittedly, he might have been joking, but I mean, in this climate, after Epstein, I'm willing to believe anything.
I'd fear more for him if he was offending the Clinton clan, but you never know.
I want to see if they actually had the audio. Well, the thing is, the audio is like 10 minutes long, so I know Kari Lake. I know if you go ahead and like go on X and type it in there, you'll find it. But he also implies that the cartel might try to go after her if she doesn't drop out as well. So basically he's implying, hey, Kari Lake, if you drop out and just go ahead and go quiet for a few years, we won't, we'll make sure you get on all these talk shows. You'll make a ton of money off of this. And when she pushes back, he starts bringing up the fact of, well, a lot of people don't like you. Some people might get, you might have to start doubling your security and stuff. Because, the cartels, they're active in like all 50 states. I mean, just really creepy stuff. And then on top of it, talking about how he might get whacked because if he ever went public with it all.
I'm still not 100% because I don't know Kari Lake. I'm not 100% convinced that she's everything that I would hope that she would be as a candidate. I have my doubts about her for whatever reason. There's just something that doesn't feel right. But
does she seem too good?
I don't know. Maybe it's just the fact that she uses her background in the news to she just seems polished and overly so, but kind of fake maybe is the word I'm looking for. But still, I would have supported her, and beyond a shadow of a doubt, she and the other Republican candidates in Arizona got totally screwed by Maricopa County.
Well,
there's no doubt that there was, and this will get us kicked off of YouTube, but there's no doubt that there was election interference. messed that up.
readers can only read, like, I think it was like 18, 19-inch ballots. And then, of course, Republican areas, they make sure all of them have 20 and up inch ballots so it can't properly read any of them. And then don't redo the election in those areas. How can you argue anything else? And the fact that the person who's responsible for having all of that, fixed and making sure it's all in place, ready for the election, is the person who is running against Carrie Lake, who didn't even recuse herself from her responsibilities of running the election. So the person running the election is the person who's up for election. I mean, come on.
And they always have these really good foolproof solutions. We're going to just put it in box C over here, and then we'll tally them up later. And all that bullcrap that was going on in the different states we'll make up for these irregularities with this foolproof system that obviously wasn't so. But and then you back this story up with the in court. You've got an expert changing votes on Dominion voting machines with a pen, just flat out showing them how easy it is. Fox News is as much problem as I've got with how they've handled themselves the last couple of years. They should get a daggum rebate, a refund from that lawsuit, because it was beyond a shadow of a doubt that you can hack.
Well, the problem with all these lawsuits that come up against like things like Fox News and stuff, and again, Fox News is responsible for how they handled it 100%, and I obviously don't defend Fox News. But
they lost me. They lost me. They lost me when they called Arizona for Biden with no votes counted. Okay, I'm out. It's a good run, Fox, but I'm out.
So a lot of these cases constantly get settled out of court without any issue whatsoever, instead of actually fighting it like they really should. Now, admittedly, you might have a case like Alex Jones had where, and listen, I know Alex Jones is crazy. I totally get it. I'm not saying that the stuff he said about Sandy Hook was right or anything like that, so YouTube, don't hate me too much. But what happened in that case was absolutely ridiculous in the sense of there was never a trial. They ruled he was guilty without ever having a trial. The judge said, give us all of your files. He said, here you go, here's all my files. And the judge said, well, I don't think that's all of your files, so you need to hand over all your files. And he went, these are all my files, here you go. And the judge said, if you do not give me all of your files, it's just going to be ruled you're guilty. Or I forget what the technical term is for the ruling, but they can say that, him not complying with the court will get him basically instantly considered guilty of what happened, because it's a civil case. And he said again, these are all of my files. What more do you want? And the judge said, too bad. You're guilty. All right, let's move on to the sentencing hearing. He never got a chance to defend himself in court whatsoever. And the fact that he could even be held liable, frankly, for being an idiot when it came to that sort of stuff is beyond me in the first place. I mean, let's face it, what harmed the country more? Him talking about Sandy Hook, or CNN and MSNBC spreading the hands up, don't shoot hoax? Like, what harmed the country more? Let's be real, right? What about when CNN actually edited the phone call to 911 that Zimmerman called in, right? When he got attacked by Trayvon Martin and defend himself. They edited his phone call to make it seem like he was saying that, hey, I shot him because he was black. Yet was there any repercussions for them for that? What about not sharing anything Alex Jones has done?
What about not sharing the details of the George Floyd autopsy that showed the drug
overdose?
Lethal
amounts of fentanyl in the system?
Yeah. There's so many whatabouts. And what about Dan Rather faking documents for George W. Bush back in the day? It's been going on. Been going on for a very, very long time.
So DJ actually DJ actually
what I can't understand, I'm like you, what I can't understand is, why do we keep letting them get away with it?
Oh, I know. Well, because we don't have control of the legacy media. The good part is,
I tell you what, we kind of do. You saw the LA Times is firing pretty much everybody.
Oh yeah.
And Sports Illustrated, after going woke, is firing everybody. They've gone belly up. So we do have some control. It's time to exercise it and stop patronizing some of these things.
And this is why they fear X as well as Rumble so much, because they thought they had control of the new age media as well. And they knew they were losing in the sense of like who was the most popular people there, but they could start banning them and getting them off the platforms and still have control over everything. Now that X is around, being owned by Elon, that's not happening over there. And now that Rumble exists as a competitor to YouTube, I mean, Louder with Crowder gets tens of thousands of people watching his show live on Rumble. And that's a lot of people. But you know,
A lot of people. What did DJ say?
DJ said, it's unbelievable that this stuff is coming up and the world is just silent. Meanwhile, of course, they played the grab them by the hoo-ha all over the place, right? They sit there and pick out the stupidest of things that Trump said way back when. Yet when someone says, hey, I'm bribing this politician to make sure they don't run, and also I'm implying that they could be killed if they decide to run, and I could be assassinated if I spread the word about it. No one wants to talk about that in the mainstream media whatsoever.
The biggest way that they express their bias is not in what they say, it's in what they choose not to say.
Exactly.
And what they choose not to show.
That is the biggest power of the media. It's not what they tell you, it's about what they don't tell you. Which, frankly, is, I think it was last stream, we talked about a little bit how the Soviet Union basically gets off scot-free when it comes to the atrocities they committed. It isn't so much because they lied to us about the Soviet Union, it's that they never told the truth about the Soviet Union, right? It's not so much they said, oh, and they did say it's such a beautiful place, but they kind of stopped doing that after a while. But what they forgot to do, of course, is to report on the fact that, places like Ukraine had to put up signs saying, hey, guys, don't eat your children because people were starving to death that bad, right? It was that bad. And of course, I know the commies will sit there and say, oh, well, famine has always existed. It's not that big of a... Yeah, you know what? When you go around and round up all the farmers and then the famine happens, you cause the famine, you're responsible. But
yeah, the fact that anybody can argue that was not government induced, that blows me away. Let's go down a quick rabbit hole here, though. You mentioned crazy radio host a while ago, so it made me think about our time listening to Art Bell and some of those things late at night. But did you see that our own government has now said that remote viewing is a real thing?
Remote viewing?
Yeah, where I can sit here and I can perceptively view something that's at your house or in another country or something. Remote viewing through psychic abilities. Look it up.
Is this like some men that stare at goats crap? Like what?
You don't have to look it up now, but that was that when I saw that, and the first thing I thought is, oh man, some of those radio shows late at night are coming. There's no such thing as any conspiracy theories anymore.
The CIA talking about an evolution in the remote viewing program. So at the very least, they believe it enough to point where they're willing to spend millions of dollars on it. Okay, there is a whole. I don't have everything here, but here's the whole document from them, from the American Institute of Research. I'm going to have to go through this.
I breezed it. It's kind of like, nah. There's no way, right? There's no way this is really from a government agency.
Listen, don't forget, this is the same government that had a woman live with a dolphin to try to make sure that the dolphin would speak English. And when it didn't work, they gave them both acid, thinking that would possibly make it so the dolphin would learn English, okay? They were tripping on acid, living in a half-flooded house together, and had the woman provide sexual favors to the dolphin, thinking it would make it more receptive to their learning practices. Like that is what the government spends money on.
I've never heard that. Right up until having to provide sexual favors, I was like, well, if I can get acid and live with a dolphin, this sounds pretty good. But you lost me there then.
No, apparently what happened was the dolphin started like trying to like seduce her, like start bringing it over like little items and things like that, like they would do in the wild. And they said, well, it's not taken to your learning, learning English from you. Maybe if you just give it a couple favors here and there, it will be more receptive. It's one of those things that you can find like books about in the sense of like, crazy things that the government has funded over the years. And I mean, hell, if they'll fund a bunch of people to do DMT.
Yeah, I've seen shrimp on treadmills and all kinds of silly things like that. But I've never heard of the trying to teach a dolphin English. That's pretty funny.
Just don't look up the programs that were paid for Fauci, because that will give you nightmares.
Well, and it'll get you kicked off YouTube if you even talk about them.
Well, let's just say his experiment on dogs, YouTube said was too violent and gruesome for me to have as a video on YouTube. Even though I didn't even play the footage, I only showed pictures of what was happening. And they said that was too gruesome to play on YouTube. So that should give you an idea. Like, it is blood-curdling stuff. It is awful. But No accountability.
So
No accountability.
yeah, no accountability, and our government can spend whatever kind of money on whatever kind of psychotic or psychic programs that they want to spend our money on.
The worst part is, though, if they're telling you about this now, that means who knows what they're working on at this very moment. 'Cause that's old stuff, right? That's old stuff. So it's funny, people, I know the one people bring up a lot is the fact that CIA actually invented a heart attack gun. Like, and I actually heard about this one. It's a gun that literally, it's like a dart that hits you and will induce a heart attack so that people will think it was by natural causes. And by all accounts, it seemed to have actually worked. And that was back in the 70s that it was created.
It's not a dart. It's not a dart. It's called the Vax. Everybody knows about this one, James. This isn't hiding it.
That's the evolution, like I'm saying. Everyone knew about the gun. Now they have to find. Talk to your doctor about whatever thing works out well for you. Pour me some more coffee with this, jeez. I didn't expect that at all.
I thought you were purposely teeing it up. I was like, oh man, I'm going for this one.
I was more going along the lines of just in general, they probably have like some spaceship that we don't know about or some crap like that. Let's face it, whatever they're hiding behind Area 51 is nothing compared to what they're hiding at a base that we don't even know about, right?
You got to know that's true. And it's on every level too. So let's not even get into the biological weapons side of things.
If you want to look at like all the money that's just gone missing in budgets throughout the years, the Pentagon misplacing like over $1 trillion. They didn't misplace it, I bet. I'm pretty sure they know exactly where it went. It's just kind of got to skirt the books a bit.
It's off the books.
Which is why I still say if World War III ever were to break out, we have no idea how it's going to be fought. Like everyone's thinking, like what's happening in Ukraine and maybe involving a couple of nukes. Nah. We got stuff well past that at this point. We have some really freaky stuff at this point, I bet.
And the problem is so does everybody else, and we don't really know what we're up against. But
DJ, 3 million or 3 trillion right before 9/11, right? Wasn't that being counted over by Building 7, right? Weren't they the ones who were doing the audit of that? And wasn't one of the groups in Building 2 also auditing some of the government during that time period?
A little suspicious how Building 7 went down and how reporters said it went down before it went down. And a lot of weird things around that Building 7, but I guess we don't want to go there.
It's funny. We can joke a little bit about it, but in all seriousness, YouTube is actually pretty dang strict about anything talking about that, which, just saying, if you want people to be confident in your viewpoint, maybe don't sit there and make it impossible to talk about the alternative, because then people are even more suspicious. But you know what? Why don't we move over to a little bit what happened, because I thought this would be the main topic going into today, but what do you know? A lot of things have been happening. But let's see if I can pull this up right here. So after Iowa, DeSantis officially dropped out of the presidential race, of course, and then instantly decided to endorse Trump, which I know you say boo. I think was a smart play. Listen, do you really think he was going to make it?
Endorsing Trump was the right thing to do. Bring it together. But I still wish he hadn't dropped out. He's such the best choice. It's not even close. But he'll do great things in Florida, and we'll see him again in 28.
I do think him instantly going over and endorsing Trump as vehemently as he did does help him in the Trump circles. Because let's face it, that was going to be a tough thing to get over later on in his political career, I think. Like if he pulled a Ted Cruz, and I love Ted Cruz, right? Ted Cruz, again, first politician, only politician I've actually ever donated to. Absolutely love Ted Cruz, but he made that stupid decision when he actually dropped out of the race to say, vote your conscience. Like, dude, come on. That was such a terrible, awful thing to do. And so there's tons of Trump supporters who will never trust Ted Cruz ever again because of that slight. Despite the fact, of course, Trump then went on to praise Ted Cruz, saying, of course, lying Ted. But I will say this.
You shifted the spelling.
Yes, right.
Lion.
I will say this. It was funny when a reporter asked Trump about DeSantis endorsing him and about, well, you still call him the sanctimonious. He went, "Oh, nah, that name's retired now. That name's totally retired now." It's funny how quickly he can switch as long as you praise him a little bit.
Well, they're really based on where the winds are blowing. There was no path for
No, there
DeSantis
really
at
wasn't.
all. And so getting out was the smart thing to do, even though I'm still saddened that he's out because I still believe he's the best candidate.
Now, here's the one thing, and I don't want to attack DeSantis whatsoever because I think he's doing the right thing here. I think he's doing the right thing endorsing Trump. But I gotta say this: Did you see his actual announcement for it? Did you actually watch it?
Yeah.
So real quick, I'll play a little bit for people to hear before I say what I have to say.
I had
Just a
to
snippet.
watch it with the tears in my eyes, but I watched it.
I'll make you relive it.
In this country. This is greetings from Florida. The warmth of being home is a reminder why I've chosen public service. From joining the United States Navy and serving in Iraq to representing the people in the U.S. Congress and now serving as governor of Florida. And it reminds me why I decided to run for president, to fight for those who've been forgotten.
Okay, tell me he doesn't sound like an AI there. I get not having charisma when you're announcing you're dropping out of the race, but that I literally saw clips of that going around before I saw that he actually dropped out, and my first instinct was AI creation. I did not actually think at all he actually dropped out of the race when I first saw that going around.
So again, our only criticism of this guy are he wears funny shoes, he sounds like a robot, and he's not the most personable guy in the world. Forget all the accolades. That's what everybody wants to fixate on.
But here's the thing about that, and DJ has a good comment here, very kind of keeping along with this of, it's still kind of tough. He gives me fake vibes like Carrie Lake. Unfortunately, I think it might just be an ego thing that he thinks he's the same man as Trump, but only time will tell. I think he's talking about DeSantis there because you know what? He does kind of give off that fake vibe sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm stuck on just seeing the results, and
I agree. Listen, I've said countless times that I really hope one day he does become president because he got results, and the things that they want to criticize him over a lot of the times has very little to do with what actually was going on. They want to criticize him for Florida for some reason when it came to COVID. It is bewildering to me how they could even possibly think to do that when Trump has a far worse record on COVID than DeSantis does. I mean,
the Trump mafia really was really pissing me off with the way with the attacks. I don't mind attacking your opponent, but attack from the right. Don't use leftist tactics.
Yeah, and I will say there was an article where he was talking where I thought I pulled up, I guess not, but DeSantis was talking about some of the issues he had with the campaign, and one of the things he talked about was the fact of no one wanted to talk about COVID. That no one wanted to have that discussion. And you know what? I'll say this. That was one of the things that he was really pushing for, that I was like, yes, he's 100% right. We have to talk about this. There has to be accountability. We need to actually figure out, all right, who was hiding the information about it coming from a lab in China, right? Who was responsible for that? There needs to be investigations. There needs to be, why was our money funding that lab? Right? There's tons of things going on with stuff like that. Fauci had emails saying, hey, this could be one of ours. Now, let's forget the fact of, the plural use of ours. There's multiple other gain of function research going on probably, but no one's been held accountable for this whatsoever. And Trump wants to sweep it under the rug, obviously, because it was the only blemish on his entire presidency in my mind, I would say. At least the only major blemish. I mean, obviously his own rhetoric at times could sometimes be a blemish, but then again, it was sometimes funny, so I didn't really mind. But it is the only thing that they can really attack him on for the most part when it comes to right-wing attacks. So Trump wants to sweep it under the rug as fast as possible. DeSantis really was the only person who did want to actually have that discussion, but never in a debate was it ever really brought up about, how he handled his state, how he focused on the side of freedom of choice rather than, of course, really forcing the vaccine upon others. I mean, and how he was, of course, one of the first states to open up saying, no, this is all BS. We need to stop doing this. And,
so
people,
there's a lot of ththings that prove to me that he was the leader we need. But I'll start with when he was first elected. If you remember that election, it was by just a whisker that he won, just a few votes over a drug-addled sex fiend or whatever he turned out to be. But that close to Florida being completely lost to the leftist. And he went in, and what most people would have done was they would have led scared. He did not lead scared. At the time that he won that close election, Democrats outnumbered Republicans by 300,000 votes in Florida. Now he's been reelected at over 20%, and Republicans outnumbered Democrats by 700,000. There's a 1 million vote switch from Democrat to Republican. And it's all because from day one, when he had every right to go in weak, he went in strong and led from the right in every step. And to me, that earned him the right to be president. And I still think it will one day. And I'm going to still keep backing him when he runs next time.
I mean, I agree 100%, really. I just don't think now was his time. I mean, obviously, near did a lot of other people, but I do agree 100%. And I think he also learned from the way Trump kind of just went at it when it came to how he was running his stuff and how much support, popular support he was getting from it. And I think he decided to kind of take that same approach, and it worked. And he did it even better because he actually knew the system that he was kind of going into more than Trump did. I mean, let's face it, if Trump knew the system, he probably would have actually got a lot more done. I mean, let's not forget that he told them to get troops out of places like Iraq and Afghanistan earlier, and they told him, yeah, we got a large amount of our troops out. There's only a few squads left in there securing the country. That's it. And then there's now emails coming out of the generals saying, well, of course, we lied to Trump to make sure we didn't pull our troops out. Okay, why weren't they ever hauled in front of a court? I mean, come on, he's the commander in chief. You obey what he says in regards to war. That's how it works. Well, but they intentionally railroaded him every chance they had.
Trump last night admitted that because one of the things he said last night in another rambling speech was that the difference this time is that he knows more. He learned things when he got in the first time. He didn't know the system. He didn't know the people. Yep. And so he's using that as a positive, that now he knows more people, knows how the system works. The proof will be in the pudding, but we'll see. I just like the fact that he said that and admitted it. But so now I'm always praising DeSantis. Back just to quick on the fake side, if you'll notice, he also he really took on Trump's hand motions and a lot of the mannerisms in the speeches, almost to the point that came across a little off-putting to me, because it's like, just be you. And I'm kind of convinced he's not really comfortable in his own skin to just go out and be authentic and be himself.
Was it, I forget if it was you or Kat, one of you sent me a picture of myself when I was ranting about the 17th Amendment, I think. And I was doing the whole Trump way hand motions with it when I was emphasizing my point. I think it was Kat, right? I don't think you sent it to me.
It was Kat, yeah.
Okay. No, yeah, I think I was editing up the footage to put for the one of the clips and one of the videos, and she pointed out the fact I have a lot of Trump mannerisms when I was speaking there, when I was getting really impassioned about it. But I mean, it's true. A lot of times,
to this day, that was the most impassioned argument I've ever heard about the 17th Amendment. So.
And that was on the fly. Think if I have time to prepare.
That's frightening. I don't know if I want to think about it.
Oh, come on. There's got to be at least a couple issues in the Constitution that if I gave you free reign with, you could take 2 hours easy with.
Well, I can take 2 hours at anything, so that's not even a challenge.
You're right, though. When he started taking on a lot of Trump's mannerisms, it did kind of feel like he wasn't being himself. Sometimes you take on that sort of stuff naturally.